Both Toller and James would make incredible additions to the list of regional champions that we have so far. Toller won the Senior World Championships in 2012, and he has also gotten 2 top 8s last season and this season just a few weeks ago, really hoping to add another regional championship title to his belt.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating how similar these two competitors' achievements are. Also, see that national champion line for Toller as well. You know, that's sort of the what was or what now is the North America International Championship, right? So even that sort of parallel between the two.
Yeah, and on this team, you've got the Golden Go. We have seen it take some major KOs with just a couple of nasty plots and that Make It Rain. And we also have the Raging Bolt with the Asilphus, which is, I think, something that we didn't get a chance to see too much of in our match today, but we did see it make an appearance in the other top cut match that we had with Toller.
Yeah, I think it's really fun, right? Kind of both sides using one of the slightly lower usage, but still large threat special attacking Pokemon. Obviously, that second Incineroar is you know, Urshifu hiding. Normally has the same sprite as the other Urshifu form, this time showing them with Incineroar. But I think a fun parallel between the teams as well, right? Both having powerful dark-type attackers with the Urshifu on one side and the Kingambit on the other.
I mean, if you squint hard enough, it does look like an Urshifu. I mean, my eyesight's pretty bad, so maybe if I am looking at it a little bit funnier. But on the other side, we've got James, who is the 2018 world champion. So a couple of years apart between the two of them, but still world champions nonetheless. And James is looking to add another regional championship as well to this impressive list of accomplishments. Here's the team that we just saw James Evans use in a top 4 match to beat Enrique Grimaldo to get to this point. And that Landorus Incarnate felt like it was very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, heck of a match, and maybe we'll see it again, right? One key Pokemon we mentioned on Toller's team is that Golden Go. Certainly doesn't want to be taking the Earth powers from that Landorus, so perhaps we'll see a showdown between those Pokemon. I think another Pokemon that I'll be curious to see if we see this time is that Gouging Fire we did not see in the last round. Several Pokemon on Toller's team where that could make sense against, but also several where I think it would make the matchup more difficult. So I think James could probably go either way with that one.
Yeah, I wonder how the Raging Bolt would change this matchup, because Raging Bolt does get that stab Draco Meteor, and depending on how this Gouging Fire on James's team is trained, might not be able to survive a big Draco Meteor coming in from that Raging Bolt. And I see the importance of an Assault Vest on both of these teams to bring to the table. But it is about time we get underway with the Masters Grand Finals at the Knoxville Regional Championships. Toller Webb and James Evans are entering into game number 1 of this best of 3. James is going to lead with the Rillaboom and the Landorus, and for Toller, it's the Tornadus and the Golden Go. So
we see the ace special attackers from both teams right on this first turn. One thing to keep in mind is the Tornadus and that Tailwind move. James, you get another player who's just largely choosing not to use any speed control moves, so it could be an advantage for Toller if he's able to get the Tailwind going, but with Rillaboom on the field, threatening a fake out, it'll be difficult to do on this first turn.
I also really just like going for a damage option here if you are on Toller's side. You could go for damage, you could go for a big switch. It really depends on what you feel like James is going to do on this first turn, because you also don't want to be taking too much damage from this Landorus. What if James just goes for a bold play and calls the Tornadus switch out?
Yeah, I mean, either of these slots now looking like very juicy slots to fire an Earth Power into, so be exciting to see what this Landorus opts to do.
Well, it's going to be an Intimidate first, and of course the Protect onto the Golden Go. Does not want to be catching any smoke from this Landorus. As the Fake Out goes into the Incineroar, and Landorus now gets a chance to show off that it was the Earth Power into that Golden Go. So nice safe turn here for Toller to make on this turn 1.
Yeah, so the tables have turned here a little bit. Now, this time it is the Incineroar on Toller's side of the field threatening a Fake Out, perhaps allowing this Golden Go to get off that first nasty plot. I think it's going to be a little difficult to get 3 off in one game like we saw the first time Toller was on stream in the top cut, but even 1 could be enough to start cleaving through this team. Alternatively, you can just go for a Make It Rain, right? If you think that James isn't going to protect, even 1 would do a lot of damage to most of the Pokemon on James's roster.
Yeah, I like the Fake Out here too. I think you're just trying to get the Landorus out of the way. It really does provide a ton of pressure. So the Fake Out goes into the Landorus. It's actually like a big chunk of damage coming in from something like the Fake Out, and that leaves room for Toller to go for a nasty plot here, and that's going to be a big Wood Hammer, but you still get that resist, so not going to be taking too much.
Yeah, I like that move by both sides. I mean, Toller realizing it's a pretty free, nasty plot. You kind of have to take it there, but I really like that James didn't give up more than he needed to. You know, no protect on his side of the field despite the threat of the fake out, realizing, okay, well, I can't stop the nasty plot, but I at least need to get some chip damage down, try to get in a situation where, you know, the Golden Go has to pay for it. Especially with this grassy terrain, allowing it to heal up a little bit potentially. It almost has to use protect here, unless Toller makes a very bold read while he rotates his Pokemon around again.
Yeah, it's really difficult to kind of make those calls, right? I think, as you stated before, you need to make sure that you feel ahead in a series before you actually go for a big, risky play. But here's the Golden Go going for the Protect.
Yeah, if there's some way you can knock out the Tornadus switch, I think it was pretty telegraphed. But no, the Earth Power is going to go in the Protect here. So Toller has played himself to a situation now where it seems like he could get easy tailwind off. But no, the taunt catches the switch instead. Perfect play.
Wow, that is a huge taunt. One of the reasons why James was saying earlier on when we got a chance to catch up with him that there's a little bit of spice on his Rillaboom. We finally get a chance to see that tech in action.
I mean, that's an incredible, incredible swing this match. I think without that taunt, Tornadus just uses the Tailwind here, and Golden Go starts going crazy like we saw it do before. Instead, now it's being checked by these Pokemon, and you know, Tornadus maybe can do a decent bit of damage with Bleakwind Storm here, but the speed control matters, right? A double target from Rillaboom and Landorus in this Golden Go slot kind of covers for everything here. So there's no totally safe play I can see from Toller's side of the field now because that Tailwind got denied.
I think the other thing about that taunt, though, is it also feels relatively safe. You're either going to get a taunt into shutting off the parting shot of the Incineroar, or, of course, your big goal is to get the Tornadus, but your even bigger goal is to just knock out that Golden Go. So huge Earth Power means that all of the hard work that Toller put into giving those nasty plot boosts over to this Golden Go is now all for naught.
Yeah, so that's some devastating damage for this Tornadus. I mean, it's incredible play on James's side where he does a great job of maneuvering his way into eliminating that Golden Go as a threat, but it's not the only Pokemon on Toller's team, right? We saw it be almost the entirety of his offense in one set, but Tornadus now in a situation where it's threatening a knockout itself on both sides, and it has Incineroar next to it to apply some fake-out pressure here.
I love fake out in these matches. I think that was something that a lot of people were saying is very underrated right now, especially with all the Farigiraf that are running around, but you can see how much space it's been creating for each of these partner Pokemon that are paired up to a fake out user. Incineroar does go for the fake out into the Landorus, but James is continuing to keep that piece safe. So now with the Grassy Glide into the Tornadus, you're just getting a little bit of chip down, but you just are trying to weave away an opening here for this Landorus. Bleakwind Storm, though, coming through from the Tornadus on Toller's side, is going to land into the Rillaboom and get that big knockout.
Yeah, I think James kind of going for the intentional KO there on his own Pokemon, realizing that he's in a really bad position with this combination of two Pokemon. Kind of has to let one go, opting to let the Rillaboom be the one that faints. But now we see the taunt wearing off on the Tornadus. I think it's actually a little bit harder to commit to the Tailwind now, because, I mean, like, you could, but the expense of that is you're no longer pinning that Landorus down. So I like that swap from James, now in a situation where you know, perhaps he goes for a Terastallization of his own here and goes on the offense.
Ooh, very interesting decisions being made here. James does have this Ogerpon in, and so I kind of like the idea that Ogerpon could just go for a big Ivy Cudgel, but Toller is definitely thinking about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be huge if it gets called here. I do think that almost regardless of whether or not you think James is actually going to do it, it's probably worth the Terastallization anyway, where, you know, I think Toller's put himself in still a pretty good spot with the damage he's put down, and, you know, he really has to avoid that one big swing the other way. I think both sides are pretty close to busting the game open.
They are, and that Landorus is still sitting here, just waiting to be able to get another knockout. The Incineroar taking this Grass Terastallization feels good in theory to save itself from an Ivy Cudgel, but the one worry is, does this Landorus decide to hit it with something like a Sludge Bomb? We will have to find out. Knockoff, though, first is going to be enough to pick up the KO, thanks to the Tailwind support coming through from Toller's Tornadus, so we don't even get to see what that was going for. We do get a confirmation of the Life Orb, of course, but it's really about this Ivy Cudgel. That doesn't even go into the Incineroar. It's just going to be a big hit onto the Tornadus.
I think it's a really nice move there, you know, kind of just playing around the potential for what happened. Like, all right, well, I don't think there's any real chance that I'm going to get the chance to swing at this Incineroar, so not even going to try. Going to get some damage onto this Tornadus, who is still pretty threatening here, right? You know, certainly don't want to deal with the second Tailwind if you somehow get to that point in the match, but also, you know, the Bleakwind Storms are actually pretty threatening these Pokemon. I think it's somewhat likely that a Terastallization is going to negate some of the threat there, but still, you know, the matchup could still go either way, but it's getting close there. It's a big knockout by Toller getting himself one step closer.
I know, James has to go for the Protect here because while we might look at Incineroar as sort of a big support Pokemon, can also be a hefty damage dealer with something like that Stab Flare Blitz. It's also just going to be stalling out a turn of this Tailwind as James goes for the Protect onto both Pokemon.
Yeah, I mean, Toller's got the pressure right now, but there's no cost of this double Protect really for James. Kind of in a situation where, you know, you aren't really going to go for like I protect one Pokemon and just try to like sneak an attack in sort of move. So why not burn the turn of Tailwind? But it's a very crucial turn now for Toller, where if he can get enough from this turn from what remains of his Tailwind, I'd be looking very good at moving toward taking a 1-0 lead in this final.
Well, you got to make sure that the Bleakwind Storm hits. That's the first step. There is a chance that it doesn't connect, but based on just having that move pressure, you can get that double damage.
Yeah. Meanwhile, yeah, I'd be surprised if we don't see a Terastallization the other direction, where this Incineroar might be a Grass-type Pokemon, but it doesn't know any Grass-type moves. So yeah, a fully Water-type Ogerpon will be looking very good here, potentially redirecting any attacks away. And with the Focus Sash on that Flutter Mane, it would ensure that it gets through this turn.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do see that Terastallization. Great call out, Scott, as that Ogerpon does get that nice little boost to its special defense, but more importantly, it's also going to be boosting up those Ivy Cudgels and just keeping itself safe from something like that Flare Blitz. Now with the Follow Me coming through, it's not going to be any single target attacks into this Flutter Mane, and more importantly, it's not going to get attacked at all. The double miss from the Bleakwind Storm leaves an opening for this Flutter Mane to get a big attack. So it's going to be half HP taken from this Incineroar and the Flare Blitz into that Ogerpon. No burn.
Yeah, that is a very unfortunate attack for the Tornadus there, where it really changes how things play out here. Not only you lose the damage, but also, you know, the chance for the speed drop, which could have been a big swing the other direction. Instead now, totally free turn, and, you know, if nothing else, I guess, like at least there wasn't like a huge damage trade the other direction with Incineroar really helping itself with the recoil damage. You don't have to worry about, you know, like a weird roll potentially causing a two-hit knockout without getting to eat the berry.
Yeah, that's very true. We see the Protect come through for the Tornadus, so just because this is the last turn of Tailwind, it means that it's going to be around for the potential of setting up another one. So another Follow Me comes through, and this time from James's Flutter Mane, it's going to be that Dazzling Gleam. So just a little bit of chip here onto the Incineroar, but critically is able to use another move. This time, this is not resisted. It's going to be the knockoff.
Yeah, not too bad there, right? Where, you know, poor Incineroar kind of in a rough spot where it's now become a fully water-type Pokemon, so the Flare Blitz not too great, and also it has an item that can't be knocked off, so that hurts knockoff as well, but still contributing there. The way this has played out, too, I mean, Toller's at least put himself in a situation where he can Tailwind again, but likely that final Pokemon's going to have some work to do if Toller wants to take this game.
Yeah, that Flutter Mane is still sitting at that full HP and that Focus Sash intact, so you're going to have to be able to get 2 attacks into it. Tornadus feels like it's stuck this turn, having to go for the Tailwind if Toller wants to have that speed control, but then it's very important what this Incineroar decides to do. As the Tailwind goes off, James could opt to just go for a Protect here, but does not. It's going to be the Dazzling Gleam with the Incineroar hanging on. So now a bit of an opening here for Toller to get a free switch onto the board, but the knockoff, Flutter Mane takes a significant amount of damage, and now that Focus Sash is definitely gone. But with the Ogerpon's Ivy Cudgel, should be a knockout onto this Incineroar, even though it is a Grass type.
Yeah, I mean, type chart doesn't matter when you have that little HP, and Toller's going to be down to his final Pokemon, but critically a final unrevealed Pokemon. So James has sort of had to plot around for 3 different potential final Pokemon here. We'll have to see who it is, and oh, it's the Urshifu. So interesting situation now. We have the Tailwind is active, and it's a very good Pokemon in this situation, right? It has a Focus Sash and Tailwind, so you can't protect against this Pokemon. It doesn't care about that. Its fist is unseen, and it could pick up some knockouts right in plain view of the crowd here and move Toller on to 1-0 in this set.
Well, that Wicked Blow into the Ogerpon is going to be able to pick it up, and with the Tailwind, it's back. We'll be able to also get the best of this Flutter Mane in just the next turn as well. Even though we see the Moonblast bring this Urshifu all the way down to its Focus Sash, this should be Toller's game for the first game in the set.
Yeah, really well played by him. A smart move in the couple turns ago to break that focus sash, and now the shootout with these two Pokemon. Urshifu going to get this wicked blow in, pick up the knockout, and move on.
Game number 1 is going to go to Toller Webb, but we still have potentially 2 more games to play out in this best-of-3 set for the grand finals of the Knoxville Regional Championships. James put up a valiant effort there, but Toller, as you stated, just a couple of steps ahead when it came down to the Tailwind turn management.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked James's efforts to slow that down. I mean, the taunt on the Tornado switch, I mean, it's a little bit telegraphed, but still, it's such a good move there, right? Where that was a move where if he made the wrong choice, he would have just instantly lost the game. But Toller is great. You know, he's able to stall things out, keep Tornadus on the field, get the Tailwind off anyway, and crucially, get that second Tailwind up at just the right time to ensure the end game.
Well, what I really liked about the taunt again is, like, while it does look like it's a big call for something like the Tornado switching in, it still had a lot of utility kind of no matter what it was actually taunting into. The other Pokemon I wanted to call out outside of the Incineroar shutting off its parting shot was if he thought that something like the Ogerpon was in the back, then you also don't give it access to Follow Me or Spiky Shield.
Yeah, taunt's a pretty good move, right?
Pretty good.
And you know, props to Toller too, where that double Bleakwind Storm miss certainly messed with his endgame planning there, but adjusts really well and finds the right solution to that game.
And that will be that very first game going Toller's way. But James, like, still played this out well. Like, I think you have to look at a lot of these options here. That was a nice little pop-off there for the double Bleakwind miss because it gave James a very, very good chance. But this Incineroar just didn't quite get knocked out fast enough, I think, was the really big key in these final few turns.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think another thing that's kind of fun about this game is, kind of props to Toller, where it looked like he let the Golden go a little bit easily. But it made sense, right? Where he didn't end up needing it. And I think like having the right 2 Pokemon on the field the whole game was very important. Tornadus, definitely the MVP of game 1, I would say, both dealing a bunch of damage and then being the one speed control option that kind of differentiated the 2 teams there, giving his team the advantage that we normally expect to speed control to provide, but that it seemingly hasn't provided all weekend.
Yeah, we got a good example of that coming through from Toller's Tornadus. But I wonder now, James didn't bring the Kingambit or the Gouging Fire. What do you feel like might be holding James back from bringing that combo to this match?
I think it's definitely an option. I mean, I think the one thing about the Kingambit, if Tornadus is going to be such a critical player, it's always fun to try to switch Kingambit into a Bleakwind Storm, hope you get the speed drop, and then make it pay for it. I think there's several Pokemon on the other side of the field that make that really challenging, though. While Kingambit would be great into the Golden Go as well, certainly not as much fun taking attacks from Incineroar, or especially that Urshifu, which I guess was already the problem.
Yeah, the Urshifu was a bit of a problem, especially being kept as a little bit of a secret until the very, very end. And we've seen Focus Sash just come into play so many times to buy your Pokemon an extra turn. And especially when you're the only one and you also have that speed in your favor. Really, really great stuff from Toller to be able to lock up that game number 1. As we head into this game number 2, Toller is up 1-0 in this best of 3. So if he secures a win here, he will become the regional champion. James is going to have to work his way back into this one. And we're about ready to get it underway.
Pressure's on for both of these trainers. I think this matchup can flip so easily with one mistake. So tense moments even for these very experienced, very successful trainers.
Heading into this game number 2, James is going to be leading with the Landorus and the Rillaboom, and Toller with the switch up. It's time for the Raging Bolt next to this Ogerpon.
I love Raging Bolt, but I don't know if I love the position it finds itself in on this first turn. Its type it will help it out a little bit against the Rillaboom, but facing down the potential of an Earth Power, I think even holding that Assault Vest, it's still a tricky spot for it.
Yeah, I don't think it quite likes looking into the menacing eyes of that Landorus either. And so Toller's going to have to think about how to really get himself out of this one. I really like the opportunity here to potentially go for that attack. If only you are expecting an attack to come through into that really juicy looking target in the Raging Bolt.
Yeah, once again, Tornadus switching in right after a potential fake-out turn. This time, no taunt called. The fake-out going to go in the Ogerpon, and it's exposed. What will James do?
James is just going to go for the Earth Power, so a big switch in from this flying-type Tornadus to make sure it's not going to actually take any of that damage. But it means that Ogerpon wasn't able to go for a big KO into the Landorus either. But there's still an opportunity to.
Yeah, I think this is a fun spot, right? Something similar to something we saw in the previous game, right? Well, this time you could use the Tailwind, but we saw how much damage Bleakwind Storm can potentially do, both nearly knocking, or I guess putting both Pokemon into 2-hit KO range or missing entirely. So I don't know if Toller will be a little shy about clicking that button again, but potentially just going the offense here makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does. I think like you also buy yourself a few extra turns of, well, what if I set up the Tailwind and then I don't get anything done with it? Maybe not quite seeing the opportunity yet to be able to initiate that speed. So safe play here with the Ogerpon using the Spiky Shield, but Landorus is also going to go for the Protect. What does this Rillaboom decide to do, though? And can it move at all? As Tornadus uses the Bleakwind Storm, not going to be able to hit the Landorus through the Protect, but it's got to connect onto the Rillaboom to get some damage down, and it does not. Rillaboom, just with the quick footwork there, able to avoid it.
Yeah, it's this is the Tornadus that we all know, love, and hate to love, where, you know, it's great when it's great, and it is terrible when it's terrible. Toller's going to have to ride the highs and lows with it, but, I mean, still doesn't really end up in too bad of a spot, right? It hurts where, you know, Rillaboom would be being threatened with a knockout here and now it isn't, but not giving up too much there. At least both sides kind of just trading ineffective blows, and the only real cost of a turn is now that those two Pokemon have spent their Protects and likely won't be able to on the next turn.
Unless you want to just go for the double. You know, a big bold play there is you could very well go for the double Protect, but it's not going to be the case as Landorus is going to leave the field. James is going to end up replacing that Landorus with Ogerpon of his own. So 2 grass types now in the field to take use of that grassy terrain. But the Ivy Cudgel as well will get absorbed by Ogerpon's ability, so no damage from that. But it's going to have to take this Bleakwind Storm. Look how low both the Rillaboom and the Ogerpon get.
It's a ton of damage. Oh, this could be a ton of damage too, and knockout.
That's a big knockout as well. Ogerpon was really there to help support this Tornadus and also even provide some follow me pressure, but now it's not able to. Woodhammer, though, does give a recoil KO to the Rillaboom, so we're both down 1-1.
Yeah, fun spot there too. I mean, tough play having to take the Bleakwind Storm on 2 different grass-type Pokemon, but I think that could be okay for Toller, right? The advantage of this is now you get to pick whoever you want to come out into battle against or alongside this Tornadus and perhaps get a Tailwind off. We see the Flutter Mane once again on the opposing side of the field, and it's a tricky spot where, you know, Ogerpon has Follow Me, the Flutter Mane has a Focus Sash, but I think I like this if I'm Toller, where you can go for a Tailwind this turn and then try to pick up a knockout probably on that Ogerpon, and then maybe on the next turn use Bleakwind Storm to hopefully, maybe this time for sure, break the Focus Sash with Bleakwind Storm and have Urshifu follow that up for a knockout.
I feel like you're saying this to manifest it into existence so that the Tornadus hears you loud enough so that it actually follows through with the game plan. Tornadus wants to hit its moves. Sometimes it just needs some glasses to do so. But on this next turn, I think there's some couple of interesting options that James can even go for on his side, one of which is going to be the Terastallization. Okay, it's going to be the Flutter Mane that's going to end up taking the Terra. So that's Terra Fairy to boost up something like a Dazzling Gleam or a Moonblast, both of which could deal some serious damage to the opposing side.
Yeah, I guess that's one way to avoid a Bleakwind Storm is to try to pick up that knockout on Tornadus before it's able to do so.
Yeah, you could absolutely just go for a single target Moonblast here, but it's the Wicked Blow into the Ogerpon to take it out of commission, and so it's just going to be that Landorus that can come back in and take its place. So this Flutter Mane is going to have to carve a big opening for it. With the Dazzling Gleam, is it going to be enough to knock out this Tornadus from there? And definitely not with the bulk investment that this Tornadus has.
Oh, that's big too. But we do kind of have an interesting situation with the remaining Pokemon, right? Like I said, the temptation to me on this turn is like, all right, you go for the knockout on the Flutter Mane and then you're good. Except maybe you're not good, right? Ending up in a situation where you have Raging Bolt against Landorus would be kind of messy. Certainly not a very advantageous type matchup. So it makes things a little bit more complicated here for Toller.
I think you just have to leave the Flutter alone. What's really tough about this is yes, you have the opportunity to hit it with a Wicked Blow, but because it terastallized to that Fairy type, it's going to be taking way less damage now because that is going to be not very effective. So with that type resist, I think you just have to try to go after this Landorus. This is going to be a Protect onto Toller's Tornadus, keep it safe for a little bit longer, but the Landorus is going to go for the Protect too. Very risky to do that in front of something like an Urshifu that has that Unseen Fist ability, so that Protect is all for naught. That critical hit is going to bring that Landorus down to about a quarter, but this Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam from this Flutter is going to be able to pick up the KO onto this Urshifu.
Yeah, so I think still a great turn for James there, where you kind of have to take that damage. No attack that Landorus used would have mattered there, although, you know, I guess as it turns out, you probably get away with the substitute. I think it's just healthy enough, or it could have. I don't want to get with a Bleak Wind Storm, right? That would have looked very silly if Tornadus had chosen to attack instead. But I ended up with a 2-on-2 here that I think could go either way. Raging Bolt. Fortunately for Toller, he still has the Terastallization available. Doesn't have to deal with what would otherwise be a just awful type disadvantage.
Well, he could just lock up the game here. You still have that Terastallization, as you said. Go give that Terra Fairy over to the Raging Bolt, and it helps to be able to keep it safe from all the super effective attacks on James's side. But it also has the Assault Vest. It also has the Snarl. Great ways to be able to keep this special attack in check, but also just might be able to get the job done. Landorus gets the double protect, though, and that's big. It stalls out yet another turn of this Tailwind and buys some space for this Fluttermane to get some meaningful damage down onto this Raging Bolt. The Bleak Wind Storm does connect, though, so Fluttermane is going to be taking about a third of its HP. Does not get the drop, though, and Snarl does it connect to help with the special attack. It does.
All right, that's big. I mean, this Fluttermane still looking very intimidating. You know, still one of the strongest special attacking Pokemon around. This Moonblast is going to come down. How much damage will it do?
Well, it's going to be into the Tornadus, which barely doesn't do enough. A huge survival there, but it does get that special attack drop.
Yeah, I think I see Raging Bolt winking there, where it just saves its buddy Tornadus with that special attack drop from the Snarl, and that's a big deal. I mean, the special attack drop could be too, though. This Bleak Wind Storm not going to do the damage it would do, and Landorus also hangs on.
Landorus is going to hang on, but now you're risking it with the Draco Meteor, but even though it's not completely accurate, it's still able to find its mark. The Landorus goes down. Raging Bolt does get a special attack drop for its troubles, but this Fluttermane only has one opportunity here, the Dazzling Gleam into both. Tornadus, of course, gets picked up by this, and it's a 1v1 between the Raging Bolt and the Flutter, but Raging Bolt's got priority.
Yeah, I don't know if this Raging Bolt cares, right? I mean, that little damage it just took from that Dazzling Gleam. Yeah, Fluttermane protecting, it's scared, doesn't want to be hit by that Thunderclap, but Raging Bolt is fantastic here, right? I mean, it's got the Assault Vest, it's reduced the special attack of this Fluttermane. We're seeing a Terra Fairy Fluttermane, the threat of this format that's been so high usage for so long, it just can't do anything to this Pokemon.
You can do the single target Moonblast. It's still going to be a little bit of damage. It brings it down, though, by not nearly enough, as the Thunderbolt, even at -2, is enough to pick up the Flutter with that crit. And Toller Webb wins the Knoxville Regional Championships.
What a fantastic run by him. Great to see a great player pick up that regional championship. And a great run by both of these trainers. We saw how good they were throughout the top cut. A very deserving winner, and we're all lucky to get to watch these great trainers face off.
That was a great matchup, but you could tell just how much both of them wanted that win, but also how difficult that matchup was for both of them. It was pretty neutral. You had to weave out as many opportunities to get ahead as you could, and Toller was just able to find a couple more of those doors.